Hello, good evening, everybody out there. Big hello from India and all my friends in India. Good evening to you. I hope everybody is doing great after the lockdown. Everybody's enjoying, but now not socializing too much and in front of your Facebook and in front of the Poets channels and enjoying us today in our Poets Without Borders FB live talk show. We have somebody very special for you, David Leo Sirois. I will introduce him quickly before welcoming him, or let me welcome him first. Warm welcome to you, David. It's such
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to have you here. Big
Pleasure to
namaste
be here.
from India.
Namaste. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
I'll go ahead and introduce David very briefly. He's a Canadian American poet who has been published 108 times in 11 countries. I will also name them because it's worth it. It's something poets
Mhm.
feel very good about, and I think everybody should feel good about. The USA, Canada, France, England, India, the Czech Republic, Luxembourg, Mexico, Greece, Scotland, and Zimbabwe. Wow. His work has been translated into 8 languages. He lived and performed in Paris for 7 years and now hosts from his native New Brunswick, Canada, the global open mic spoken word online, which is a wonderful show, friends. It's often up for viewing, and I hope that you join. I have had the opportunity of being a featured poet, and I just loved it. David is a very talented poet, is the first thing I should have said,
Mm.
and also a very talented host. Uh,
Thank you.
and his poetry has appeared in journals such as the Bombay Review, the Poetry Village, One Hand Clapping, the Sunday Tribune Online, the Bastille, Becoming Fire, Spiritual Writing from Rising Generations, and a couple other French journals which are difficult for me to pronounce, and so I'm going to skip them. And he's also translated some very famous French poets into English. And he is regularly invited to feature at global events like 100,000 Poets for Change and 100 Poets Around the World for Love, as well as international podcasts and interviews. And it is such a pleasure again, David, to have you here. Warm welcome all over
Thank you.
again.
A pleasure to be
And
here.
thank you. And to add to everything that I said, he has just published his brand new book. It's called Humble Doves. It's out on Amazon. So, everybody, please grab a copy because the poems are very beautiful. So, first of all, let me congratulate you, David, and let me ask you about the book. Tell us a little bit about the book. Its dominating theme, the
Sure.
poem. Yeah.
It's a comedic book, the one I published. It's a collection of my poems to pigeons and to plants, a few of those. And I wrote those, I started in Paris when I first saw my first white pigeon that I saw. I started writing a poem about a pigeon, and then I kept encountering pigeons like one that was all brown, or children chasing pigeons, things like that. And so I ended up with having written more than 27 poems to pigeon, if I count right. And they were so popular in Paris among the open mic audiences there, uh, that I decided to put them in a book and publish them myself while waiting for, you know, my serious books to get published in, big contests and by publishers that I've sent them out to. So yeah, it's a funny little book, and I've had a lot of great feedback for it.
Wonderful. How interesting. That's very surprising because the poems that I have read of yours, they are, very deep and intense. And when they talk about love or when they talk about heartbreak and disenchantment with love, or when they talk about your spiritual journey, we will talk about one poem at length. But before that, I just want to discuss something else, which is this award of yours that you won. I skipped that in the introduction. You won the third prize in winning writers Virgil Flom Humor Poetry Contest. I don't know if I pronounced it right. So tell
Fine.
us all about this. Where was it and everything?
Okay, so Winning Writers is the organization that hosted that contest, and they host uh, several contests a year. Uh, so the Wurgle Flomp, it's just a made up name. It's a funny name. Wurgle Flomp Humor Poetry Contest is for the basically the funniest, most ridiculous poem you could possibly send. And my poem, I Hear the Bank of America Singing, won third prize. And the one of the honors of that was that they invented third prize, which they never had before, for my poem because they thought it stood above all the honorable mentions. Anyway, so it was an honor to win that, and I hope I win it this year. I sent in a poem called "Man Boobs," and it's very funny. So we'll see.
Great. All the best for that and congratulations all over again. How lovely. Yeah. And now, coming back to some serious poetry, right? I mean, you do these humor poems, but you also write some very serious poems, right? Like this poem of yours on the Twin Cities. Tell
Yes.
us the title first, please.
The title of that poem is "Impromptu Constellations."
Right, right. Now, a lot of friends of mine are going to be watching this. And when I read that poem, there's so much inviting an Indian, so much in that poem that is inviting an Indian as well, right? I mean, poems are global, right? And they appeal to the whole world. But there are certain things that are specially inviting, right? So if I can read just a couple lines from it, and maybe I can request you to also read further ahead, but I just want to read this. It says, it's about this river, right? The St. John River that flows between the two towns that you live in, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
it separates Maine from Canada.
Right, absolutely. So you're addressing beloved blue, seeker mirror, sister river, Madhava here, your open secret admirer, and then you talk about the river, so on and so forth. And do you also personify, or are there people coming into this poem? I mean, it's a very beautiful poem, exceptionally powerful, right? So, several questions about this poem. One,
Okay.
tell us a little bit about this Madhava uh, uh, side of yours, or aspect of yours, or part of you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
also, you have several images going on. I mean, one question is beloved blue. Is it just the blue of the river? You have
It's
some
a
other
woman.
words. So explain
It's a
that as
woman
well.
who it's a woman who
Yeah.
owns a cafe in Edmundston, New Brunswick called Cafe Lotus Bleu, and I wrote a whole group of poems for her, uh, and so she's kind of starring in this whole book, and I just called her Bleu in the book. Uh, she was very inspiring to me, so everything, literally everything she said, struck me as like a deep message from the divine. And so this book is all formed around epiphanies from being around her and listening.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, there is almost like a like some stanzas that talk about an intense relationship or being in there. But I was wondering if you could say something about this queen bee and the worker bee and the bees trapped inside the lotus.
It's funny stuff. Um, well, I'm just describing, and I don't know if it's better to hear the poem or what have you, but just describing she and I cleaning up the cafe in the evening and closing up, uh, describing us as two bees trapped inside the same lotus, this cafe lotus
Right.
blue,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that we share one solitude, one honeyed solitude. Uh, so I really I like bees, and they often follow me, and it was fun to put them into a poem. But being around her, it almost felt like we were sharing one solitude. It was very deep, our connection, and so I love that image of her being the queen bee and I'm a worker bee, because I was the one cleaning up the cafe at night and getting to spend time around her, which a lot of people would have wanted to do. It's so inspiring.
Right. And now, about your spiritual journey. When you say Madhava here, and you also told me that that is your spiritual name, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that aspect? You also said that, you are, aligned with some guru, and
Yes.
you actually dreamt of this place. I mean, this guru is like an other mother to you, right?
Right. Yeah, since the age of 5, I dreamt about a woman uh, and about these beautiful grounds, kind of a campus of buildings that was very beautifully kept up. And uh, in a childhood language, I guess, I thought of her as my other mother. Because of course, in daylight, I had my real mother, but I was being cared for, mothered, and brought up in these dreams by a woman who I'd not seen in real life, and I called her my other mother. In any case, uh, I was 24 when I came to her ashram, uh, and I'm just saying the connection there is the woman I was dreaming of. I recognized at the ashram as Guru Mai Chidvilasananda, who became my guru, and I've been studying under her for over 25 years, since I was 24, anyway, almost 26 years or something like that. Um, and uh, studying under her with her enlightened wisdom and her powerful Shakti, her energy, not just when I'm around her, but that I feel, a Kundalini power inside me. I don't want to sound esoteric or what have you, but so having lived at her ashram and meditated and chanted and still imbibing so many teachings uh, from her perspective, the liberated view, uh, that affects everything I do, and it pours into my writing. So these enlightened teachings that I'm studying and trying to experience what's behind them, uh, I find end up getting translated into my own language in some of the
Wow.
poems. Yeah, even in my children's books that I wrote, Butter the Cat, the moral of the story ends up being kind of a translation of something Baba Muktananda said. That was the you know thought of the day, contemplation of the day, in a book I have of quotes from her and from her guru Baba Muktananda. So funny, it even went into children's form, and my mother said it was very silky the way it was woven into the ideas and the words.
Wonderful. So, this children's book, when did you write it? How long ago? And
Butter the Cat is the name of the book. My cat is named Butter, as I said before, but I wrote it very quickly, very inspired, a few months ago, and reading parts of it at my open mic, Spoken World Online, which I'll just say is a continuation of Spoken Word Paris when it went online. Um, People loved the lines about butter uh, so much that I just kept going, and I finished the book, and I sent it to a couple of places. Nothing happened, so I'll keep sending it out. But it's got a ridiculous chorus that I could imagine kids like 3 or 4 years old kind of saying out loud in like a reading group in kindergarten later on, or preschool earlier on. And the chorus of the book, the refrain is remember to never butter the cat. Butter the cat, but not like that. That keeps coming back, and it's a very fun little book.
And very cute as well, like your cat. And she's a good friend, right? I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, so now, do you want to tell us your love story a little bit?
Behind the book of the Blue Lotus poems. Sure.
Sorry?
The love story behind those philosophical love poems, like that one that you quoted earlier.
No, no, I'm just asking you for your life's love story, but let me rephrase it.
Okay. Yes.
Let
Hmm.
me rephrase it.
Well.
Uh, what I'm
Uh,
trying to ask is, I'll
yes.
just that how do you think a poet's personal life affects their writing, be it thematically or be it the mood of it, like love situations, marriage, kids, and okay, I'll save the second part for later. So
Well, I think that everything in one's life kind of filters into the poetry they write. Uh, and yes, I've been married twice, uh, and I've written, a few poems for each woman I was married to, but I never thought they were very good. They were cliched or sentimental. So finally, with these poems from Blue Lotus Sutra, which is the name of the collection of those philosophical love poems that you were quoting, um, I think I finally got to a point where I could write about a love uh, in a non-cliched way. after after many years of workshops and reading the best of what I could find, I think I finally got it. But I see poetry as you know everything in my life flows into it. Uh, Even if I've had a bad day or whatever, that'll taint the tone of the words. Uh, yeah, I don't know what to say. I was said a friend said of my poetry, it's all practice, no theory. So I don't think about it very much. It's just what I do. It's the most natural thing to me.
beautiful. Yes, all practice, no theory, and yes, I don't think about it too much. Yeah, wonderful. Can I ask you another personal question? I mean, you wrote a children's book and you said this
Yes,
was a while ago, and you yourself don't have any kids.
no.
And, you know, um, do you have plans to have any kids?
No. I was always open to the idea, but it never happened somehow. Uh, and I decided at this point, I just turned 50, that I really don't want to have kids, and maybe not even a love relationship right now, because all of my time is, I work just part time, but all of my time is taken up by writing and getting published and getting interviewed and giving readings. Uh, so I don't really want anything to distract me from that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes.
I don't have any children. It just never happened. Uh, but I've spent a lot of time with kids because, for example, in Paris, aside from hosting my open mic, I uh, for making a living, I worked with children. I babysat and taught kids English. I did that the whole time I was there, all 6.5 years. And so I've been to these you know reading groups where very young kids and then a little older, like from maybe 3 to 7 years old, where they all listen and hear a children's book, and sometimes
Mhm.
there's a refrain and kids say it out loud every time it comes up, like maybe one would do with Dr. Seuss, something like that. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't have kids, but I enjoy their company, and they enjoy my company so much. So it's very enthusiastic, and I have a playful side. So I just enjoy being around kids, and my nieces and nephews as well. So to make a long story short, um, I write
Wonderful.
children's books because I think they'll reach children in a certain way, uh, even though I've never had any
That's wonderful. That's
role
wonderful. And
models.
it's like you're the only one in this world, who doesn't have kids of their own, but still are very comfortable with them and are very pally with them and enjoy their company. There are lots of teachers like that. There are lots of people,
Great.
and that's beautiful actually. But anyways, and that's too bad that you're saying that you are not even looking for a relationship. But anyways, putting the lighter things aside, here is another, you know, serious sort of a question about poetry, which is that, these are very tough, turbulent times that we are living in, right? We don't have an open war going on in the parts of the world where we are living, but in many other parts they are going on, like in Nigeria, in Palestine,
Right.
there's so many places, Yemen, and Africa, many other parts of Africa, and right? But there is another sort of a war, like with immigration and all of the racism issue. So my point is that these are very turbulent times, right?
Right.
Now, yet it doesn't seem to be the time or the age for political poetry. Most poets you meet, and the poetry that seems to be really popular in the market, is love poetry. Do you agree with this? And if you do, or even if you don't, why do you think political poetry is not so popular anymore?
Well, I can't be a voice for what's happening in publishing or what people are reading. I don't really know. A lot of that is about numbers, sales of certain books, or what people are reading nowadays. But there are poets like Ilya Kaminsky, one of the best poets writing today. Um, he uh, he said that a lot of American poets say, "Oh, I don't write political poetry," but that in Russia they just call it poetry. you know, which I love. You could take it a couple of ways, like all poetry is political, or uh, all things you can say. You can say anything in a poem, and it's poetry. So,
Hmm.
so I stopped saying that I don't write political poetry. I write about what I'm inspired about.
Right, absolutely right. Great. But the Russians are pretty tough and they have their own parameters. And, I have won a few prizes in some Russian contests very recently,
Great,
participating in a festival. So that was amazing. It's a
wonderful.
different experience. Thank you. I'm yet to receive one certificate. But do you think poets are playing safe? Like, I think, I can't remember the names, and I hate to say this, but I think even, maybe Hemingway. I mean, Hemingway was also a soldier, but there are other people who kind of, actively participated, say, in the Spanish Civil War, by which I don't mean they were soldiers, but they wrote, they took sides. Similarly, some Latin American writers. Today, there seems to be some sort of a not a political detachment, because in the Indian context, there are lots of poets who are just, they're just the spokespersons of one particular party or the other. It's very frustrating. But when I look at the scene in the West, it's different. And yes, then there are poets who are just doing love songs. So, do you think that poets are playing safe?
Um, I don't know. I don't know what other poets are thinking. That's the quick answer to the question. But I think there are three main things that are very difficult to write good poetry about, and so much bad poetry has been written about, and that is God, politics, and love have generated a lot of poetry, but most of it is pretty bad. I don't want to go into my feelings about my critical feelings about poetry because I can be a very vicious critic. So I don't engage in criticism because that would be very bad to people, and I like to be nice. But I don't know if they're playing safe or not. But it's difficult to write about politics. And one thing about topical poetry, uh, the only reason I don't do it, like write a poem about the pandemic or about current events politically, um, is that I feel that you can write about a certain topic, but tomorrow it'll be different. You know, it's the idea of yesterday's news or what have you. And so I could comment on something, and then tomorrow it'll be a different story. And so I want to
Hmm.
write things that have an eternality to them, like you know, Rumi didn't write about the new technology that may have been invented during his time, whatever tools it might have been. Or I don't like to write about anything that wouldn't be understood in 500 years. Uh, it's certainly not topical events.
Wonderful, beautiful answer. But by political poetry, I meant something that is, say about the rights of people, about, say, the status of migrant camps or even detention centers or something like that. But and I understand that they have a lifespan in some ways, but you could understand them or you could read them as period poems. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe
Right.
they do,
Yeah.
yeah, but we don't, there is no, I think there is no one final word on this. So
Yeah. Or my opinion could be totally wrong. There could be poems written about current events that are just so well written and so full of truth that they last forever. Um, I just don't know how to do it. You know.
no, that's you're an amazing poet. You write beautiful poetry. I am just asking all of this because I think that with so much war around, maybe poetry should also
Yeah.
speak. Yeah, so that is why. I
Yeah.
mean, I read your
In
poems.
my daily life, I try not to live in an ivory tower and be as aware of the world as I can. Uh, it just somehow doesn't go into my poetry, but
Mhm.
there's so many important things uh, to think about and things to change in ourselves and in the things that may need changing in the world. Um,
Mhm.
not that one person can do it, uh, but we can all help. So in my daily life, uh, I like to be aware of all those issues. It's just that for some reason, I mostly write about spirituality and you know love and the human condition and stuff like that is what get inspires me to get my pen out and get writing.
Yes, and wonderful. And you're also right that a lot of poems being written are not so good. You're right about it. But anyways, uh, you know, for everybody, it's a learning process, and let's hope that we produce some beautiful literature and also encounter it. So let me ask you, what makes a poem beautiful for you? According to you, what are the elements that make a poetry, a piece of poem beautiful?
Uh,
Uh,
I think what makes poet I think what makes poetry beautiful is the beauty of life, uh,
uh-huh.
and then the way that a poet engages with it.
Hmm.
It's a hard question for me. I mean, I find lines that provide a fresh understanding and a fresh way of saying something about the beauty of life can startle me or startle a reader into seeing things anew, into seeing the beauty that is there. Uh, and uh, I don't know. I feel pretty dumb right now, but
I, I totally agree with you. And here's the second part of that question: what all can poetry do apart from being beautiful? I mean, it has to be a poem. It might be, that's the first thing, right? And it's a cliche. That's right. You're talking about all of these things, but my dear, this is not a poem, right? It happens, and we've been rejected. But I mean, I will not tell my own story right now. We've been rejected by some bad magazines and published in some good magazines. That also happens. And there is something called bold poetry. It likes to experiment. But anyways, what do you think? I mean, apart from doing justice to poetics, what all can poetry do?
my main goal uh, in writing a poem is to raise someone's consciousness, raise their vibration. Uh, and so a lot of what I write, um, the best lines are quotes from saints uh,
Uh-huh.
or spiritual experiences that I've had that translate into the words or that cause words to arise. Uh, so poetry can certainly raise consciousness, like reading Rumi, for example, or Mirabai, uh, and many other great poet saints, uh, Nyaneshwar Maharaj and Tukaram, and so many. It raises one's consciousness to read the words of enlightened beings. And so, in a very humble and probably poor way, badly done, the spiritual experiences I've had, uh, I try to put into words. And I have a thing that I don't know if others feel the same way, but I think my best work, like Song for a Seeker of Eden, is it's trance channeled. I had a vision of a dove of white fire landing on my head and burning down my spine, and I collapsed onto a bed and said a creation story. And I should read it later. Um, and a friend wrote it down, and then I was encouraged to revise it, and I've been doing it for over 25 years, and it gets published at all different points. So I think the best poetry and the poetry that has the power to raise one's consciousness comes from very, very deep inside. And so my two trance-channeled poems and the lines from dreams that I'm collecting right now are poetry of a much greater magnitude, much better than what I can write while conscious. So, having collected over 200 lines from dreams and now putting them into a completed manuscript after the first bunch were published in the Bombay Review, I just like that element that poetry can come from a power greater than ourselves and our little mind trying to grapple with the world. You come from somewhere beyond the ego, and that's my real goal in writing, is to touch on that.
Beautiful. Comes from somewhere beyond the ego. That was a very fine point, apart from all of it. Yeah. Now, your French connection.
Right.
Your, yeah, you have some, I think you are, your ancestry, right? Your descendants of your grandfathers migrated from France, it seems, or great grandfathers. So, do you have stories going around like that in the family, or any memory of that? And your friends in Paris. Do you speak French? How much French can you speak?
Mhm.
Are you
That's a
to French?
great question. So, well, firstly, my last name, Sirois, which could be pronounced like Sirois or so, rolling the R and saying it in a really French way. My ancestors come from France, from Saint-Germain-en-Laye, which is, of course, just a little west of Paris. And I've been there. I had a job interview at a preschool there, and it was wonderful to see the town where the Sirois kind of are said to have come from. And there's a castle. There's a huge building with columns that are bigger than 100 of me, and it's exciting to. And I and the on a personal level, I'm a Francophile. Most of the poetry that I really adore is French, and I don't speak fluently, but maybe like 75%. And so I read French poetry and work with translating it. And as Robert Pinsky said, three-time poet laureate of the U.S., uh, maybe translation is the highest form of reading. And I love that, you know. And of course, he translated the Inferno, Dante. So it's a great way to go deeply into a piece of literature and deeply into a language. Uh, and having lived in Paris for 6.5 years, um, the city inspired me so much that my poetry was transformed. And the best thing that happened to me in Paris was Spoken Word Paris, the group of Anglophone writers, expatriates that live there, and going to a poetry workshop at Shakespeare and Company changed my way of writing so greatly. Uh, Changed the quality of my writing, not my way of writing. And then going to Spoken Word Paris, the open mic every week, like church, for 5 years, from the discovery of it until I left Paris, um, affected my poetry so much in terms of like trying to write a poem that can be read aloud really well, that can be performed, recited, and touch people, having that long lyrical uh, style that people can listen to and grasp. So all my poems are meant to be read aloud, uh, and are coming from things that and experiences I had in France. The whole book of pigeon poems, Humble Doves, uh, I wrote in Paris, and it depicts pigeons, for example, as like fashion conscious little things, and I don't know. So everything about what I like is French, my favorite language, and my favorite poetry, and my favorite place to live. I hope I get back to Paris.
Wonderful. Yeah. What made you come back to Canada?
Well, my dad became really sick. My sisters thought he was going to pass away, and that I wouldn't get to see him in his last days. I was very poor, also at the end of my days there, and so they chipped in money to fly me back from Paris to my hometown, Madawaska, Maine, and northeasternmost town in the U.S. Uh, and my dad got better. He's actually doing great right now, and I get to spend a lot of time with him and with my mother, still alive while I'm here. So it's a great time for me to be here. Um, but that's the reason I came back mostly, and that I wasn't doing well in Paris. Uh, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, being an artist is very challenging in these times. I
Yeah.
appreciate your boldness, but my dear, I just want to ask you. I mean, you said that your ancestors migrated from this place in France to North America. I want to ask whether they migrated to Canada or to United States.
Well, to Quebec originally, because there's a lot of Acadians here where I live, but my dad says we're not Acadians. We come from Brittany and other parts of France than an Acadian would. But they settled in Quebec, and then like the Cajuns, like the Acadians, uh, filtered down into the U.S. and a lot of towns in northern Maine, people speak French, and all the way down to Massachusetts, a lot of places where where a lot of people speak French. So anyway, they migrated into Quebec and then kind of came down into the U.S.
Quebec is very beautiful. I've never been there. I lived in Canada for about 7 years after. I don't know if I have told you, I think I have, and this is your interview, but just very quickly, I used to live in
Wow.
States and after being deported from there,
Right.
that's another story, right? All of
Yes.
my poems are about that. I lived in Canada, and I was just waiting. It's just so beautiful, Calgary. It's just so beautiful in the foothills of the Rockies. And
Mm.
I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and my study permit was actually never renewed. So it's a
Oh,
long
boy.
story. Anyways, I do want to get back to North America. All my things are kept in a friend's place.
Uh,
It was heartbreak. But anyways, now your favorite poets. I know you've already talked about a few uh, poets who have inspired you. So if you want
right.
to very quickly name maybe one or two more, and then we will listen to your beautiful
Oh, okay.
poetry. The best part.
Wonderful. So my favorite poet in the English language is William Butler Yeats. I have a lot of his work memorized. And in the German language, Rainer Maria Rilke affects me greatly. And in French, Paul Valéry, whom I translate. Uh, and then in Spanish, Pablo Neruda. So I have several favorites, and they're all from the modern period. Uh, and so, yeah, that's what I dig. That's what I like. T.S. Eliot
So
also.
do you speak and read Spanish as well? I'm sorry, Spanish as well?
No, no, none
No.
of those languages, neither German nor Spanish. But I realized that my favorites are all kind of from a different language,
Same
each
here.
from, all of them are from different languages. But it's an honor to have been translated into Spanish and published in Mexico. And my main, just briefly, uh, I love what you're doing, translating my work into Hindi. It's very touching and very deep for me. And I found someone to translate my work into Bengali and somebody else to translate it into Marathi. So
Wow.
India, yeah, I'm very India focused right now, and I think the Indian people and in Bangladesh and Indonesia, other places, uh, South Asia, a lot of they really connect with my poetry, and I think it's because of my spirituality being arising from India, essentially. Uh, so that's one thing I'm honored to do, and one will find you know glimmers of Indian wisdom and other things in my poetry.
Wonderful. Yes. And your poetry is really so beautiful. It should be translated. Good luck with that. And yes, I am enjoying translating. And, let's hope that we will see more of it soon. So, now do you want to actually read some of it, your poems?
I'll read especially the poem that you like so much, Impromptu Constellations. And I guess I should say to everyone that doesn't know, the word Madhava, my spiritual name that I was given by Guru Mai, means the sweet one. And that's one of the meanings. And I'm sure you know many others. I've heard other translation that word, but uh, the fact that the idea of being the sweet one, a lot of people say is kind of who I am or what have you, but I'm just translating that because it's in the poem. So I call myself Madhava in the poem. Impromptu constellations, beloved blur, seeker, mirror, sister, river, Madhava here, your open secret admirer, fellow monk-like lover of all, your humbled student and sometime teacher, your waking and dreaming dance partner, cross the St. John River, wordless Wolastoq, which sketches an imagined border between Canada and the States with her fresh, ancient ink. She carries a light green iron crown, cross-hatched beams, and weathered sky, bridge that bonds both sides of one persistent river. She is a young deity, content to wear her cracked ice coat, dressed in late December black and white, as if the tallest birch on earth laid its whole length down. These twin towns are practical dreamers, as you are, solitude's daughter. Your wise, wide, mystic twilight eyes witness what unfolds in the circle of now, where all clocks lost their hands. In this world of surfaces, I am your worker bee, and you are queen at Café Lotus Bleu, hive of like-minded seekers, the warm heart of Edmundston. We gather inside your large-heartedness that keeps its beat on the pulse of life. Here, characters lean on, learn from, and teach each other, evolve constantly as conversations revolve over global cups full of coffee and tea in impromptu constellations all around your enlivened cafe. As my other father forever says, this world is nothing but a spool of love. Cher Bleu, this dusky afternoon unfolds fresh linen snowfall. All three cafe doors locked. Here, two sleepy bees closed in this lotus to share one honeyed solitude. Your coffee stained tan canvas shoes grip the ground without ground addiction that feeds us the false belief I am real because I have to be here and work. We both embrace the inner work, shoveling out the muck, as Yeats wrote, to create space inside sunrise, taste delicious bliss as we learn the language of silent light. Inside this theater set, kaleidoscopic electric cafe, we improvise lines marked by messages from God's house, which I call the home office. We accelerate each other's path within the grip of our ribs, thoughtful snowfall of letters and numbers, powerful characters that populate the stage of creative minds. We write our own play from inside its lines. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thought. With our thought, we make the world. First truth in Buddha's Dhammapada, field of sacred duty. Outdoors, a slow parade of shadows floats past to a soundtrack of Eric Satie's Troisième Nopidi, the piece you broadcast in your cafe first day I sat with, a bilingual interview. Its slow, sad, solo piano notes cast a contemplative dance ambiance. Earlier, I heard you nearby remind someone, everyone, in 100 years, none of us will be here. We wash our hologram hands side by side at end of day, die into the ink of dust, and switch off lobby lights, the stage set anew for tomorrow's show. After hours in the cafe you call your front shop, a frame to hold us as we paint our inner evolution, with a single flourish of your fingers, you quietly unveil our powerful snowstorm dream. What is this world? It's just powder.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much,
You're
David.
welcome.
Thank you. Is there another poem that you would like to read?
Yes, and I think it'll prove the point that the poems written in trance or in dreams are better. Some poets are scared of that. Paul Valery said he'd rather write a bad poem while conscious than a great poem in a trance. Well, I take the other stance. So this is
Yeah.
song for song for a seeker of Eden. Over the face of naked waters, a nameless breath was blowing. In wide wind, white seeds of weakness and weightless days of realization whirled in one confused flurry. A subtle hand separated light from dark, dark from salted sky, and turned to lift solid air above from undulating dark seas beneath. On the second day, a sphere of raw fire was carried up into the blank dark to make day, and a round stone mirror rose into the opposing sky in a shower of sparks to make night. Our globe's green skin split into countless shoots of wet grass, and the bark of trees burst into soft green flames. Blizzards of birds brought fresh brilliance to foliage, and seven oceans flooded with the flashing blue light of countless fish. At the next dawn, dark infant soil learned new red languages, pulses of horses and bulls, massive shadows of elephants and rams spilled into wilderness, wildness of rain. On the following day, a plot of dull clay was shaped into articulate human fingers. Between blood and blood, skin and skin, man and woman, the two were shaped, held in delicate hands of sentient trees, one unique in rich scarlet fruit, pregnant with seeds and secret that carried rumors of death. Amid wrinkled branches, serpent made of the yellow muscle of want wound its insidious whisper. You will know yourselves and fathom the sky if you bite this blood-colored fruit. Each of them stretched a fleshy hand toward one apple that was their own crimson consciousness. Man and woman shared that dark starred fruit until their lips bled with vision, taste of sunset inside the sky. Naked, they ate the red within the red as the first leaf wrinkled and blindly fell.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You
I
know,
think that, thank you. I think that is a lovely note to end on. Thank you for your beautiful poems. Let me not just, comment anything more except saying that they were very beautiful. So thank you so much, David. It was a pleasure talking to you. If
yes,
there is anything else you want to say to your friends in India and the world over, now is the time. You have 30 seconds.
okay. Well, I'll just quote my guru's guru, Baba Muktananda, and say two things. God dwells within you as you, and see God in each other.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. And my greetings to your godmother, this other mother. And thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank, thank you, Pankhuri. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.